So I hope you can all see, I hope you can all see my screen. Now, last week, we started our class unfortunately ended unceremoniously because of network issues, but I think today we should be relatively okay. And we want to continue on research types. Now, we saw something of it last week. We looked at basic research and applied research. Do you remember what we talked about basic research? Does anyone remember what we talked about basic research?
Some of us had network issues.
Okay. But those who didn't have, someone must have, there are those who could have had a relatively okay network. Do you remember what we said about basic research? Okay. I'm going to give you a small exercise to find out to get for me examples of what basic research is, practical examples, not just explaining, but practical examples of basic research and applied research. So I'm just going to come to descriptive research. What is descriptive research? So there are times when we need to have a description of a phenomena. Now, take note of the words I use because I'm going to insist on using certain words because research, anyway, any kind of studying is about introducing you to new language. Don't think that Madame Sheba is being mean. She's using words we don't understand. It's just simply to introduce you to these words. There are things that you cannot simplify, okay? And a student must simply get used to them. I remember a case in point when my siblings and I were very small. We grew up in the village, great village, in school, you know, where you walked barefoot in school, the school you are in only taught you in the local language. So at a certain point, my father gets promoted and we moved to Kampala, where you had to learn where English is a must. And my father would do simple things to us. He would call you and tell you, go to my room and get me a mirror. And he uses the word mirror. And you don't even know what mirror is. Yeah, but it was his way of forcing us to learn English. So it's also a method I'm also using. I'm using the word phenomena. These are key things that you're going to find, words like this. So try and find out what the word phenomena means. So you need to have a description of a phenomena, something that is of interest to a research community. Okay? Let me give an example. It may be a phenomena to a certain research community on perception of learners towards e-learning. If I use a term like that, perception of learners towards e-learning, what am I talking about? That there is a phenomena or question about the perception of learners towards e-learning. What would I mean if I used terms like that?
You mean learners thinking on the subject of...
Yeah, the learners thinking, the learners' thoughts, the learners' perception. That basically, what do learners think about e-learning? Maybe in the research community, there's a question that we have now introduced e-learning. And we've seen universities and schools picking up e-learning. But we have not yet found out the perception of learners. What do learners think about it? Especially in relation to the teaching and learning process. So, in other words, the researchers, the community is asking for a description. So, a researcher will carry out a research to describe the perception of learners, the state of affairs. So that is typically a descriptive research. So it emanates from that question of what do people think about this thing? That research question, what do people think about this thing? Or it could be what is the makeup of IT students in universities? There could be a research question that what kind of students take up IT as a program? What kind of users? What kind of customers? What is the makeup of online shoppers? What is the makeup of those who use social media to search for and purchase goods and services online or on social media? So that the question there is asking a researcher to give a description of the kind of online shoppers. Those who are most likely to be attracted to using social media to do online transactions or shopping. Yeah, that is a descriptive research. It's describing the state of affairs, as you see here, the state of affairs as it exists at a present time. So descriptive research is researching at this particular time. What is happening right now? There's research that can decide to go backwards. We shall see, in types of research, we shall also see what we call, where the time scale matters. Yeah, where time, there's research you do right now, there's also, there's longitudinal research, and the other term I forget, but we shall see it later on. It's coming in the slides ahead. There's research with longitudinal research, and then there's research you do right now. I'll give you an example. In the UK, there was someone who carried out a research on the stages of growth of a child, meaning they picked a group of children and began collecting data on those children from, I think, from the time maybe they were like 5 months to about 5 years. So the group of children you follow from the time they're like a certain age, like maybe 0 years up to 5 years, that's longitudinal research when you're collecting data for a long period of time. Then there's data you pick for right now. So that is typically descriptive research. Yeah. So here, the researcher has no control over the variables. So whatever the researcher finds is what he or she reports on. Yeah, we shall see different kinds of research where we are picking only particular data. The reason why we're saying it is descriptive, it is, for example, if I said, if someone asked me, give me the characteristics of students carrying out IT, who are carrying out the program of IT. So when I come to understand who you are, anything goes. Whatever I find is what I'm going to put down. If I find that we have students who have of varying ages, some are 30, some are 18, some are 19, whatever it is, I will pick it. Some like wearing blue hair, they are very fashion oriented, others don't care. If I find some actually like artists, while others are very pragmatic, they are very current state of affairs, that kind of thing, they're into politics, I'll put that there. If I find that these are students who are maybe politically motivated, you find that people who are politically motivated, you put it there. You find that some are poor, some are rich, from poor or rich backgrounds, you put that there. Whatever it is, you put it there, because it's basically a question, the descriptive research, it's they're saying we don't know, so we want to understand. Whatever it is that comes, let's find it. Whereas we shall see in researches that come later, where you only go for specific variables. Yeah, only for specific variables. For example, imagine a researcher in the laboratory. Imagine a scientist who is researching on COVID-19. The COVID at that time of 2020, when we were under lockdown. Imagine that those researchers, or let me just even be more specific. If we imagine someone who was trying to look for the COVID-19 vaccine, they were given a vaccine, you're given the virus, you're given a vaccine. And then in the laboratory, trying to test the effect of this drug on the vaccine. What do you think they would be looking for? For example, if you apply the vaccine to the virus, what would you want to see? If you are the scientist, just give me, I'm not asking you to use technical terms, but what would you want to see if you applied that vaccine to the virus? What would you want to see? Or imagine you had a patient who had COVID-19 and you gave them, you have a human subject, a human being, you inject them with this virus and then expose them, you inject them with a vaccine, then expose them to the virus. If you were the scientist, what would you expect? What would you be looking out to study? What would you observe on that subject? Let's just use our imagination here. We're not looking for anything academic. Let's just use our imagination. What would we look for? Come on, don't be shy. It's just we're just using our imagination here. We're not looking for technical terms. Just use your imagination. Imagine you are the scientist.
And then you make sure your patient doesn't die.
Of course, that one would be for sure. But if you applied that vaccine, you don't want your patient to die. If you applied that vaccine, what would you observe? What would you want to observe to see if this vaccine is effective or not? What would you observe? What would you try to observe?
Madam.
Yes, please.
I would try to observe, like from the time I've given this patient the vaccine, how their reaction is. Maybe
Their
if
reaction.
improving.
Madam.
Yes, please. Yes, Kusima.
I would observe the progress of how, like for example, if I've given the medicine, I would see if the medicine works or not, or if it has an effect on the person or not, or the symptoms or something like that, or if it brings infections, something like that.
You observe the symptoms. So the symptoms, for example, like the temperature, does this person get the sore throat? How long would how quickly does the body fight this virus in terms of if the person has a vaccine or no vaccine? So the symptoms, Kusima, that's a good one. The symptoms become your variables. So that scientist already has variables. They are looking at how quickly does the body fight the temperature? How bad is the sore throat in comparison to someone who has not received the vaccine? Is it as bad, or does the person show no symptoms? Things like that. So those symptoms become your variables. So that scientist has predefined variables they are studying, okay? Predefined variables. Whereas in descriptive research, you're just discovering the variables. Okay? Do you get the difference? Descriptive, you look, yes, Francis?
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So descriptive, you're basically looking for those variables. You're trying to find out what variables exist in this group of people. You don't know them, but in a controlled research, the researcher has the variables already predefined. Like Sime says, the symptoms for the COVID research, the symptoms would be the variables. I'm observing these particular symptoms. You don't care whether the person is married or not. You don't care if the person is likes rap music or romantic music. You don't care if the person is tall or short. You don't care about those things. You don't care if the person likes Beyonce or Taylor Swift. You don't care. Those are non-essentials. So for the controlled research, the variables are very clear. But here, descriptive, the variables, you're going out to discover them. If we want to know the perception of learners towards e-learning, whatever you discover goes. For example, someone's perception, some group of people may perceive that e-learning is evil. Another group may perceive that e-learning is better than physical. Another group may perceive e-learning is a hindrance to my religion. Another person may perceive e-learning is the best thing that has ever happened in the world.
Madam.
Yes, please.
I'm still confused about the variable. Please kindly give an example of another variable apart from the symptoms, please. I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise up my hand. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I don't know how to
It's
do
okay.
that. So.
It's okay. It's okay. No problem. No problem at all. Questions are very welcome in whatever form. What exactly is a variable? When you're doing research, you're studying something. When we're doing research, we don't study everything. We're looking for something in particular. We're trying to discover something in particular, okay? Now, take an example. If I am studying, let me just show you the example here. If I'm looking at student attendance, I'm studying student attendance. Now, if I'm studying, let's say, your particular class, if I'm studying attendance, what is it that I'm looking for? I'm looking for
the number of students in the class.
Exactly. Number of students in the class. I'm looking for time, how, in terms of attendance, I may be looking at the time you actually log in. Or if it's a physical class, the time you actually come in. The attendance can be described in many ways. How many times you attend a lecture within the semester. The time you actually come in. There are those who come in 30 minutes after the lecture has begun. So that, of course, affects attendance itself. There is also, attendance can also be measured in terms of participation, the participation in class. So all those things I'm talking about, Kusima, are variables. The physical or virtual attendance, the time you attend the class, participation, all those they can be related to attendance. So all those three things I've mentioned, Kusima, are variables. Yeah. So if I'm studying attendance, I'll be looking at those three variables. I'll be observing those three variables. So maybe at the end of my study, I will say the physical or virtual attendance is 50%. In terms of time, maybe only 60% are there on time. Let's say within the first 15 minutes or the first 10 minutes, only 60%. In terms of participation, maybe there is only 2% of that. Then at the end of it, I give a conclusion that really attendance, we could say, is poorly observed amongst the students, because if only 50% of the total class actually attend from beginning of semester to end, if only 60% are only present in the first 10 minutes, and if only 2% participate, meaning I can conclude as a researcher, these students have poor attendance. Those three variables are what I've used. So, Kusima, have you understood those variables?
Yes, madam.
Now, if it comes to descriptive research, like we said, if I give the example of e-learners, we want to find the perception of e-learners on, let me use a whiteboard here. Let me use a whiteboard. Now, let us say it is a perception. Let me say perception. Let me try and write this perception. I hope I get the spelling right. Sometimes we over depend on the computer. It's perception of e-learners. Sorry, of learners. To e-learning. So the researcher is going out to find, is going to get a description of perception. The researcher may, in their collection of data, they'll find some group of people say, or one or two people said e-learning, let me use this as e-learning is evil. Someone may give a whole story. So here, let's say I'm doing a what we call qualitative, where I sit down and talk to people. And then I find one learner who says, me, I think it is evil, maybe because some people abused me when I was online. They said bad things to me when I asked a question, blah, 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 blah. That is one perception. And then another person says, physical learning is better. Is better than e-learning. So here, this person, because of their experience, decided to come to the conclusion e-learning is evil, okay? Because of the experience, e-learning is evil. Another person here, because of their experience, says physical learning is better. Maybe he said, maybe this person said that in the physical class, the teacher, I would see the teacher, then afterwards, after the class, I could easily go to their office and ask them. But now, you see, for Madame Sheba, it's very difficult to get her. Now, which means for me, I think it is better to have physical classes, okay? Another person says, the e-learning is better. E-learning is better than physical. And then the person may say, because for me, I can, maybe the person says, for me, I can easily do other things together with learning. Maybe for me, I'm working and it becomes very difficult for me to travel to the university for classes. So for me, e-learning is a lot better than, and it allows me to do my work at the same time study. So here for them, it is convenience. Convenience. Then for this one, it is about access. Access to the teacher. This one, it is about emotional. This one is about emotions, the emotions that were raised, the negative emotions, negative experience. You can say maybe negative experience. We can call it negative experience. Or even we can better say experience. Sorry, let me just put this, experience. So this one, it is experience, this one is access, this one is convenience, okay? So now, what happens? These variables, the way I've summarized this, where I say e-learning is evil, experience becomes a variable. Where it says physical is better because Madame Shaba becomes difficult, but if she was here physically, I can easily go to her office and ask her for extra help, access. Then this one who says, for me, because I'm working, e-learning is better, that is convenience. So now, Kusima, what you do here as a researcher, you would be reporting that the perception of learners depends on 1, experience, 2, access, 3, convenience. So you're discovering and providing variables. Those become the variables. So the difference between yes, please, Kusima.
Does it only apply to only access, accessibility, convenience, and experience? Only the 3?
No, what I'm just giving you an example that let's say the researcher would have discovered this. We're just using this as an imagination. This would be what the researcher discovered. So the researcher now reports these are the variables that point to the perception of learners. Experience of a learner either gives a positive or negative perception. Access to a lecturer either gives a positive or negative. Convenience either gives a positive or negative. So you're giving the variables. So the difference between for description, you're discovering the variables. In a control research, you already have the defined variables you're going to look for. I don't know if you get me.
It's okay.
I hope everyone gets me now. If you're doing, let's say, IT research, and And for instance, you are looking, you design an application, you implement it in an organization, and you're asking the question, does it bring about efficiency? So the question would be, what variables measure efficiency? What variables measure efficiency? Let us say you have designed a system, you've put it in an organization, and you're trying to determine if this system actually brings about efficiency. What variables would you use to measure efficiency? Okay, what variables would those be? So you can think about it. At a certain point, we may have like a small class exercise and to try and see if we were doing research in that area. Think about it, read about it, and see. If I designed a system and tried to determine if this thing brings about efficiency. Or I'll give you another example, which Brian gave us the last time, of AI and marketing, to help a marketing manager improve sales. What variables would we use to determine if AI has actually done that, improved sales and marketing? What measures do we use? Okay, so I'll leave that for you to think about. Let's move on to the next type of research, analytical. Yeah, where the researcher uses facts and information that are available to analyze a situation. Okay, critical evaluation of material. So let us say, you say, can you evaluate students' performance from students' results? So now this is where you would most likely use the predefined variables. Unlike analytical, where you are discovering, and in descriptive, where you are discovering, in analytical, you have variables that are already predefined. Yeah, so if we said evaluate students' performance, what are we looking at? What are we looking at? Performance from students' results. Can you evaluate students' performance from students' results? If I was looking at performance, I want to look at maybe attendance. I want to look at participation. I want to look at, so if I'm looking at attendance, remember the variables we outlined, participation we outlined, and then you look at the results that come into play. What is the students' results in terms of their attendance, in terms of their participation in class, in terms of time they come into class, in terms of consultation. So you can give out, let's say, a survey to students. You also carry out an evaluation. You look at attendance, the reports on attendance. You look on reports on participation, and then you relate that to a student's final results. Okay, in relation to that, how many students, for example, how many students who are among the 50% who attend throughout the semester? How many of them, and then in relation to how many of them actually get above a certain mark, and how many get below? How many of the students who are the other less than 50%? What is the result of their output? Then you look at participation. If I have the most active students in class, what is their result? And the least participatory, what is their result? And then you come up with a conclusion. That is a critical evaluation. Okay. So the descriptive, the person you're going out to you don't know how something looks like. What is the current state of affairs? And then you look at, in analytical, the difference is you are observing the facts. What are the facts about something? Yeah. What are the actual facts? It's not just description. If we're talking about performance in relation to attendance, in relation to participation, the various variables there are predefined. You find out. I don't know if I can do a share again. on this. See if I can wipe this out. How do I clear this? Okay, sorry. Let me share again. I want to see how, I'm not sure how do I clear all of these. Sorry. How do we clear a board? I'm trying to see how I can clear a board. Okay, delete, clear all drawings. Okay, that's good. So in analytical research, so imagine you're going to study attendance. Attendance. So if I'm going to study attendance, I am going to look at, evaluating performance. It is performance. The study is about performance. Results. So in terms of performance, what are we looking at? Performance, we can say we are looking at attendance. And we already said attendance may include class attendance. We are looking at time. The time you actually come to class. We're looking at performance. Participation. It is participation. So you're looking at how many in the class actually attend throughout a semester. In terms of time, how many come on time? Participation, those who ask questions, either in class, outside of class, so on and so forth. Now, when you get those results, you look at the actual scores. So you will ask a question. Those who attend class, maybe there are 50% who attend. Of the 50% who attend throughout the semester, what is their score? And those who do not attend, what is their score? In terms of those who come into class maybe within the first 10 minutes, what is their score? Those who come in less than 10 minutes, what is maybe more than 10 minutes, what is their score? Participation, those who participate, what is their score? You can even go further and find out library use. Those who use the library maybe 60%, what is their score? Those who are less than 60%, what is their score? So now here you are critically analyzing. You have predefined variables and you're analyzing, and at the end you will find out, you may find that maybe those who actually attend 50%, their score is the same as those who don't even physically come. Maybe those who come within 10 minutes, maybe they score better than those who do not. Then those who use the library. Whatever the case, the results, that is an analytical type of research, where you're analyzing particular variables, very particular variables, okay? The difference, just when you share the difference, again with descriptive, you're just discovering the variables. Here, you have predefined variables which you analyze and then you give a report. Does that explanation make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. We have quantitative and then qualitative research. These are all types of research. what is quantitative research, what is qualitative research. Now, all these researches, you're somehow going to see as you actually physically carry them out. When we look at the term quantitative, it refers to quantity. It's coming from quantity, a certain number. We already see things like this. If two or more politicians stand for a post, the one that wins or candidate, let's just not say politics. You've seen this at university when candidates stand for president and so on and so forth. The one that wins is the one who has a certain number of votes, valid votes. So already that gives you a hint on quantity. It's about quantity. We measure things according to value, the expressed value, yeah, in numerical form. When I was talking about analytical research, I already gave you this hint. It's about quantity. Let me come back to the whiteboard. Here, the attendants were looking at quantity. How many are attending throughout the semester? And of those who attend, how many score above this point? And then those who didn't, what was their score? Those who come in, of the 50% who do attend, how many come in 10 minutes within the lecture time? Be it virtual or physical, what is their score? We are measuring in terms of quantity, okay? I'm trying to be as illustrative as possible, not to just use words. So we're measuring in terms of quantity. So we are measuring what? The variables, yeah? So by now we already know what variables are, okay? So we're measuring in terms of the variables. And we come to the conclusion based on the variables. In our study here, we shall come to a conclusion based on our variables. That does attendance affect score? Does time you come into class affect score? Does participation influence score? Does library use influence score? So therefore we say performance does have an effect on results. The better you perform or you participate or you attend class, the better your results will be. You will come to that, as a researcher, you come to that conclusion. So that is what it means basically using the quantitative type of research. Yeah? Any question before I go further? Please ask as many questions as possible. Do you have any question? Should I take silence means consent? Please ask if something doesn't make sense, please ask, okay? The best thing a student can do is ask me questions. I welcome all questions. Don't imagine it's a stupid question. There is no such thing as a stupid question. We are here to learn. Even me, I'm here to learn, okay? Let's come to the other type of research, qualitative. Yeah? Qualitative. So qualitative, as opposed, it comes from quality, not about quantity, it's about quality. Okay? So if we were talk about quality, for the ladies, let's come to the ladies. When we come to fashion, what do we mean when we say quality? This is, this thing is quality. For the ladies, what comes to mind when you think of quality?
The materials, the brand, the price.
Yeah. So the material, what is on vogue this season, brand, someone may argue, what do you mean brand? If I get, I'm not very good at fashion. My siblings are very good at fashion. If I get something made from a tailor in Kampala there, as opposed to getting a Dolce and Gabbana, Dolce and Gabbana, is it? Yeah, DNC. What's the difference? Well, the way Dolce and Gabbana, the way they've marketed themselves, the way they've built their brand to be associated with luxury. So as opposed to the tailor somewhere in within those whatevers of Kampala, those arcades of Kampala, who has not built his or her brand, nobody knows. So it is about how Dolce and Gabbana, how they have spoken about themselves, how others have spoken about them, the thread they use, you know, that kind of thing. They have created this image of themselves as opposed to the tailor who may be within your suburb or something like that, he or she has not spoken about himself. Maybe it is the style Dolce and Gabbana use. There's a certain style they use, which is of the latest of sewing, of cutting, of, you know, maybe for them they're now thinking about the environment, because now the environment is very, very important. They say for us we only use sustainable things, organic cotton, that kind of thing. So it's about the brand and so on and so forth. The way people describe themselves, the way the picture they portray of themselves, that's about quality. If someone was to ask to go in depth, what does quality mean? Then I'll talk about the thing that I like. I'm not very good at fashion, but I like food, and I like good food. I like good food. I can pay money if I went to a nice restaurant to buy good food. What is good food for me? It is using a style that is outside of home. You know, when we're at home, we eat the normal things, matoke, ground nuts, beans, and we all do the same thing, fry onions, tomatoes, put royco, that usual things. Whereas if you went to a restaurant, maybe you're eating Italian, maybe you're eating sushi, maybe, or you're eating a pizza, something that's outside the norm, that you don't get just at home. It is something prepared in a different way, using ingredients that you don't find at home. That's where the price difference differs, as opposed to if you went to the market, bought a cup of beans for 1,000 shillings or 1,500, you boiled them. The tomatoes, maybe you bought them for 2,000 shillings. The oil, you use the cheapest oil you can possibly find, or you use ghee, that kind of thing. So if you totaled it up in terms of money, it's very different as to going to a restaurant where they're going to use cream cheese. They're going to use the bacon, something you rarely see in your home. They're going to, ingredients that you don't find. So that is the quality part. So now, what do we mean when we talk about qualitative research? You're getting those things that you wouldn't get on surface. You're getting information you won't get on surface. Take an example. Let me just go back to the quantitative. We're talking about numbers. If I come back here to our board, if I'm talking about attendance, the 50% who came to class on time, okay? Did you find out why the other 50% didn't come on time? Why these other ones who came to class on time? What happened? What was the cause that for the person to come on time? Maybe one of the students who wasn't able to come on time Maybe he or she had family problems. Maybe they have been carrying a sickness. Maybe you have a student who is addicted to drugs or alcohol. Maybe the person didn't have the resources. For example, we are online. Maybe there's somebody who doesn't have a device. Or maybe this person doesn't have access to the internet. To find out that in-depth information that the surface cannot give you. Quantitative looks at quantity, but qualitative, you're looking at the inner things that cannot be expressed in, for example, on a questionnaire, which is just asking you yes or no. You're going in depth. You're going in depth to find that which is, which cannot be picked on surface. So the previous example I gave you of the perception of e-learners, of learners on e-learning. A researcher who has found out where somebody says this thing is evil, because then you ask the person, why do you think it's evil? Because last time when we were online, we were supposed to have a chat, maybe Madame Sheba put up for us a discussion forum, I put up an answer, somebody else, maybe someone says, maybe Kusima says, I put up a response to her answer, then Brian says, you're very stupid, Kusima. And that experience taught her, gave her the perception that e-learning is evil. Now, if I had just given a questionnaire to say, do you like it or not, someone would just say yes or no. Whereas in qualitative, a person sits down with a research participant and asks them, what do you think about this thing? Why? Why do you think this? You're investigating the reasons of human behavior. Okay? Let me bring this also into an IT perspective. Let's say that you're looking at adoption of IT. You can have a questionnaire to ask you, you create your system, you implement it in a certain context, or you even put it in a laboratory experiment where you give users, maybe let's say Brian creates a system, an AI system, then he brings people into a university lab to test out the system, to see if it can be adopted or not. Then he starts measuring things like how quickly the user can use it, can they access the information they want to access, can they easily maneuver through it, its features. For example, if the features, like for example, if I'm using WhatsApp, someone is studying me, they would measure things like how easily can I use the keyboard to type a message, how easily can I read a message, how easily can I download, let's say, something that has been posted to me, things like that. Then the person will conclude those variables, things like accessibility, use, ease of use, and navigating the features. They measure them. That is the quantitative side. The qualitative side, you, the researcher, you're going to ask the perception of the user. You ask them, how did you feel as you are using this thing? How did you feel as you are using it? And the person tells you what they felt. Maybe I felt, I can easily move through the features, but I'm asking myself, of what use is this thing? Is it helpful to me? I find it boring. Look at the colors. The colors, someone say, look at the colors. First of all, they are dull, they look funny. There you're really getting the reasons why someone may or may not adopt your system. Maybe the colors look bad, maybe the fonts. It's taking up so much of my time for me to access this video. May I find it easier, but I would rather go and get the video from this place rather than from WhatsApp. Things like that. You're getting the reasons for the behavior behind. That is qualitative research. You're asking the underlying motives and desires for using something. So normally we can already see with quantitative, you would have given something like a questionnaire or you'd have observed in a laboratory. In qualitative research, you do interviews, you observe, you hear people talking, you can do group discussions, things, because you're really trying to get the reasons behind the motives. Yeah. So we are trying to increase our understanding of why things are the way they are. That is qualitative research. So qualitative research is not about quantity. It's about quality. How deep you can go to understand something. For quantitative is how wide can you go? How many people think this? How many people have done this? But for qualitative is how deep you can understand something. Do we have any question?
No, madam.
Okay, let's move on. We have conceptual and empirical research. Yeah. Conceptual and empirical research goes back to basic and applied research. So I will not go in depth with this. I want you to go back and read about those two. Basic research, applied research, conceptual research, empirical research. Now, next week, first of all, we're going to have discussion points for next week. Look for articles, published articles. And each one of you, you're going to give me an example from what you've picked. Where would you put this research? Is it qualitative or quantitative? When you just read about it, just reading, did these people look at quantity or did they look at quality? Understanding the motives behind something. Look for something IT related. You can even use the articles you picked up earlier. Is it qualitative in nature? Is it quantitative? Is it descriptive? We are going to share this in class. We read through and we make a conclusion together. Okay?
Madam?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Yes, please.
I sent my work on email for
Yes,
the coursework.
Yes, I actually saw it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so for this one, let's stop there. Is it okay if we pick up the next lecture? We pick up another topic? We still have time, so let's move on to research philosophy. Give me a minute, let me just pull this up. So I hope you can all see the screen.
Yes.
Okay. So we are going to look at research philosophy. All these things we're talking about, they are basically one and the same. They cover everything we have. This is the understanding. What we're doing is we're looking at the concepts behind research, okay? And they are connected. Looking at the different types of research and coming to the philosophies of research and what we refer to as the onion. This gives you, first of all, the pillars on which research stands. It gives you the different concepts, the different things that are so important to research. Sorry, my mouse is a little bit erratic. So they're all tied in together. So what do we want to look at? Again, we're going back to some of these concepts that we're talking about. Or if we look at the types of research we've just discussed, you will find they fall under one of these philosophies. Yeah. Positivist or interpretivist or realist. It falls under one of them. It will fall under any of these approaches. These are just technical terms to give you an understanding where your research lies. Now, after that, the main thing we're going to talk about most likely next week will be research strategies or methods. Last week, some of you went and researched. I remember there was somebody who found out what research methods or research strategies are. So the approach you use, the type of research you use will dictate or will point you to the research method that you're going to use. We shall hint on validity. Validity is a key point, and reliability. Validity of our research. What do we mean by validity? Whenever we are doing our research, you need to validate your research to say the conclusions have come to we have arrived at them through objective processes, truly objective processes, and our conclusions can be valid. Okay, our conclusions can be valid. Let me just give you an example. When I talk about validity, we all know we come from an academic system. So Christian has a consortia, but at 11 we have mobile computing. Okay, sorry. How much time do we have left? Give me a minute. Let me first pick up my phone to pick up. Look at the time. It's about 11:30, 10:31. Okay. What would be your suggestion? Should we stop here and we pick this up next week?
Yes.
Okay. I think, okay, let's stop here for now. We pick this up next week. Make sure next week when we come, the first thing we're going to start with is that exercise. Is that okay?
Madam,
Yes.
remind me of the exercise.
Let me just read. Hold on a second. Well, now you already have articles you use for your assignment. You can use those, or you can pick another published research article. In this, we want to identify under what type of research these articles fall. We want to identify where this are. So we're going to do this first thing, our first lecture, next week. Is that okay? That's one.
It's okay.
Two, I've asked you to look at basic research and applied research, conceptual research and empirical research. Those two. So those are the first two things we're going to look at next week. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Kalevambi, thank you. Everyone, thank you for this class.